Why is it that if you call for violence against Jews day after day on the streets of London, that's A-OK with the Metropolitan Police? But if Jews want to congregate in central London, apparently it's not OK, and we'll have to retreat to another venue. I'm not a victim here, and I'm not claiming any victimhood. I don't believe in that. I don't care. I'm not going to shut up. I'll continue speaking. This is my country. London is my city, and I expect to be able to do what I want in my city. But why is it that we have Hamas supporters and all these others who defile our monuments, defile our country, hate our countries, literally spit on our country week after week, but you're not allowed to show solidarity with the Jews or with Israel? It's a despicable situation, and it's come about because of a generational cowardice by politicians of all parties and by the Metropolitan Police and others. I think it's appalling, because I know one thing for sure, Julia. The people who hate the Israelis, the people who hate the Jews, the people who we're watching at the moment marching through central London, they hate Britain as much as they hate Israel. It's just that Britain is first. We're all going to be next. So I'd say stand up in whichever way you can. And if you're an usher in a theatre, well, do your darn job. It's what you're employed for. But the idea that we have to keep giving in, and that this society, of all societies, Julia.
Britain, where's your backbone? Douglas Murray just delivered a scathing wake-up call to a nation surrendering to intimidation and hate. From a London theatre cancelling a peaceful Israeli fundraiser to extremists marching freely and desecrating war memorials, Murray exposes the cowardice infecting Western institutions. Why are mobs dictating free speech? Why are radicals tolerated while moderates stay silent?
A fundraiser for the Israeli university, the Technion, was forced to move venue at the last minute after staff at the Apollo Theatre in central London refused to work that evening due to an appearance by Douglas Murray. There were also protests outside the theatre and threats emailed to the staff. Joining me right now to discuss this is author Douglas Murray. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Julia.
Thank you very much. Always so good to talk to you. Right, I mean, this was an event moved at the 11th hour, thankfully not cancelled, but it was able to take place. Who wasn't happy? I'm wondering, it's going to be an absolute mystery, isn't it? Who wasn't happy with you, an author, a journalist, speaking out at a fundraiser? Who wasn't happy about you appearing, and why?
Well, the event was meant to go ahead at the Apollo Theatre on Shaftesbury Avenue. It was sold out. And it was, as you say, to raise funds for students at an Israeli university, many of whom have been called up in wartime, and their education has been completely disrupted. And so, yes, it was a conversation that I was being interviewed by the actress Louisa Klein. And it was going to be a warm and happy event. And a group of staff at the theatre said apparently they felt unsafe about the event. Then something very sinister occurred. The CEO of NYMAX, who is herself Jewish, started to get scared, it seems. She called in staff from another theatre, and one of her own staff leaked the emails of the people who were going to work as ushers and so on the evening. And then they themselves dropped out from fear. By this time,
did they actually receive emails threatening them if they appeared to work at the event?
That's not clear to me, actually, at the moment. It's interesting. It's nowadays, as you know, Julia, in our country, it seems even the threat of a threat is enough to make people cancel an event. And I, at any rate, don't respect that at all. My view, if a theatre receives threats about an event that's ongoing, there's one thing they do, which is they call the Metropolitan Police and they say, your job is to protect this venue and make sure that the evening passes off safely. But they didn't do that. They just, as cowards as they are, cancelled the event. Fortunately...
And this was only last night. This was hours before the event.
Hours before the event. The idea that the theatre wasn't prepared to stand up for the freedom of speech, which our forebears laid down their lives to ensure that we, their descendants, got, is, to me, absolutely outrageous. Sometimes, Julia, I don't recognize our country anymore. It's filled with Islamists parading around the streets praising terrorists, and cowards in all positions in public life,
But
it seems
there's
to
a
me.
very big difference, isn't there, between, you're, on minimum wage, working in a cinema as an usher, you've been asked to go work somewhere else, you've been told your email's been leaked, pro-Palestinians, reports claiming that there were threats, okay, we can't verify that, and you're thinking, is this really my fight? Now, I can understand wanting to stand up and saying, no, this is my fight, freedom of speech. But for a lot of people, they go, no. But it is the venue, it is the venue, owners and managers who should be standing up. We've seen this again and again, whether it's a cinema showing a film that some people of Islamic faith don't like, whether it's, in fact, it actually happens again and again for women standing up for our gender critical beliefs, that trans women are not women, and people being, again, no, that you can't be housed by that. Comedy, when people just want to just say the most basic stuff that is just known to be true.
Cowardice is the new currency of Western institutions. A fundraiser for an Israeli university, students rebuilding their lives after war, gets derailed because theatre staff in London felt unsafe. Unsafe from what? Douglas Murray reading words? Or was it the mob of pro-Palestinian activists outside, baying for blood? Let's be clear. Unsafe is code for being intimidated by Islamists. And instead of standing firm, the venue folded like wet paper. Since when did threats dictate free speech in Britain?
And basically losing the venue. This has become a common occurrence.
Yes, it has, Julia. And frankly, if you work in a theatre, your job is to open the theatre.
Yeah.
And your job is to ensure that the show goes on. That's it. Now, as you say, 18, 19-year-old ushers. Now, maybe we shouldn't rely on them to be the most sturdy members of society. But you know what? I do expect that, actually. I do expect people to turn up and do their job. Because otherwise, and I think this is one of the things that happened on this occasion, otherwise, all you need is some malevolent actor saying, I don't feel safe.
Yeah.
And then the whole venue collapses and the whole event is cancelled, as in this occasion.
Yeah.
We've seen this at publishing houses. There was some kid at one of the publishing houses who were going to publish J.K. Rowling's The Ichabod, which is for, I think, 8-year-olds. And somebody in the staff, junior member of staff, said that his non-binary friend could be affected by this. And on the basis of that, he tried to get the publishing house to drop J.K. Rowling.
Yeah.
And, I
Funnily
said
enough, it didn't work. Yeah.
Yeah, I know, amazingly enough. Well, on that occasion, it didn't work, but many other publishing houses actually would have caved because we live in a society, it seems to me, where the kids dictate to the adults and the adults have all vacated the room.
But it's only occasionally when there is someone who stands up, for instance, over the Dave Chappelle special on Netflix, and being accused of being transphobic. Nothing he said that's remotely transphobic in any of his specials. No. And Netflix staff going outside and protesting. And Netflix, I think we were all surprised by this, saying, well, go and get another job if you don't like it, which is unusual and is what should be said. But the fundamental error here, though, is failure of the government and a failure of the Metropolitan Police and other police forces around the country to instantly say, we will be there in force. We will bring riot shields. Yes. We will be there in force. The right to freedom of speech absolutely matters. Because it seems to me the only time the Metropolitan Police think the right to freedom of speech matters is if someone is shouting for jihad on a Saturday afternoon walking through London streets.
Well, that's one of the things, Julia, that I take away from this. This is why I say I don't recognise our country anymore. I really don't. I don't know why we have given in to Islamists and terrorists. I don't know why we've done it. Why is it that Saturday after Saturday, people parade through the streets of London, calling for jihad, praising Hamas, praising terrorists, and clambering over and defiling our sacred war monuments? Why do they get to do that every Saturday, but I can't speak in a theatre on Shaftesbury Avenue to a packed theatre, mainly of Jews? Why is it that if you call for violence against Jews day after day on the streets of London, that's A-OK with the Metropolitan Police? But if Jews want to congregate in central London, apparently it's not okay, and we'll have to retreat to another venue. I'm not a victim here, and I'm not claiming any victimhood. I don't believe in that. I don't care. I'm not going to shut up. I'll continue speaking. This is my country. London is my city, and I expect to be able to do what I want in my city. But why is it that we have Hamas supporters and all these others who defile our monuments, defile our country, hate our countries, literally spit on our country week after week, but you're not allowed to show solidarity with the Jews or with Israel. It's a despicable situation, and it's come about because of a generational cowardice by politicians of all parties and by the Metropolitan Police and others. I think it's appalling, because I know one thing for sure, Julia. The people who hate the Israelis, the people who hate the Jews, the people who we're watching at the moment marching through central London, they hate Britain as much as they hate Israel. It's just that Britain is first.
The streets of London are a disgraceful circus, where Hamas supporters scream for jihad and defile war memorials, while the Metropolitan Police twiddle their thumbs. But a peaceful event for an Israeli university shut down. Why? Because a mob outside and apparently hurt feelings dictate public order now. This is Britain, where calling for Jewish genocide is tolerated, but solidarity with Jews is silenced. When did we surrender to those who hate both Israel and Britain?
We're all going to be next. So I'd say stand up in whichever way you can. And if you're an usher in a theatre, well, do your darn job. It's what you're employed for. But the idea that we have to keep giving in, and that this society, of all societies, Julia, we used to be a resilient society in Britain. The country we were brought up in, our parents' generation, our grandparents' generation, were resilient people. We don't have to show that much resilience these days. We just need to show a bit of backbone. Where is it, Britain? Where have you gone?
But we gave up years ago on this. We know that the authorities, everyone is terrified of this threat. Charlie Hebdo onwards, Salman Rushdie, even before then, we didn't stand up. Our authorities didn't stand up. It was like, well, don't write books that are going to upset people in Iran. Then, well, don't do cartoons. When a teacher 4 years ago in a religious studies class shows in the Batley Grammar School the images that Charlie Hebdo showed as a discussion point, and then faces death threats, still in hiding 4 years later, the local MP never discussed it, won't go on the record, won't do anything. This happens again and again. The authorities are afraid. Why are they afraid? What are they afraid of?
Oh, they're afraid of Muslims. They're afraid of Muslim extremists. They're afraid of the Muslims taking to the streets and vastly outnumbering the police, which has happened on occasion after occasion. That's what happened. Then
shouldn't moderate Muslims who didn't want to come and live in this country or were born in this country, who don't share those values, and I like to think the majority don't, shouldn't we all be in the streets and say, that's it, we will not put up with this anymore?
Well, I'm afraid what you call the moderate Muslims are notable by their absence, certainly notable in condemning their co-religionists when they call for jihad and much more. So I don't have any particular faith in that particular corner of society. But I do wonder, as I say, what has happened to everybody else. Last week, we had a Conservative MP stepping down because he said there are too many threats to his life and he just doesn't feel safe being in politics. And all these nincompoops in the Conservative Party and the other parties sort of said, oh, that's sad that that's happened. No, it's not sad. It's an outrage. It's an absolute outrage. And the police, I mean, last night in London, outside the theatre I was meant to speak at, a group of Islamists paraded up and down the streets screaming through megaphones abuse at me. I don't care. But I think the Metropolitan Police ought to care, and also let's never forget, Julia, we are all being played in Britain. We are all being played. People like the ones you're watching at the moment, they wouldn't reciprocate and give us our rights to freedom of speech if they had the upper hand. Not a bit of it. These people would subjugate everybody. But they're trying everything they can now. They're pushing, as people like them always do. And I would like to see Britain to push back. I think it's high time we made it clear that we're not going to be pushed around endlessly. You know what? We have holy places as well. One of them is our war memorials, which are trampled upon week after week. You know what? I've heard enough of Islam's holy places. I've heard enough of Islam's feelings and the sensitive feelings of Muslims that dictate which films can be seen and which books can be written. Well, you know what? We're not very sensitive. I'm not very sensitive. But actually, I do have feelings as well. And my society has feelings. And we don't like trampled
We are a
upon.
very tolerant society, but our tolerance is being used against us. We're tolerating intolerance. We need to make it very clear. As I say, if you want to live here, you have to come here to make your life here, or you are born here. If you do not share these values that we share, hold dear in terms of equality, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, and well, I like to think most people in this country hold those. I do worry they don't anymore, whether whatever religious faith, equality, etc. If you don't share those values, there are lots of countries that you can go and live in who share your values. If you want to live under Sharia law,
absolutely.
if you want to have those sort of controls on people.
Britain, where's your spine? A teacher hides for 4 years after showing a cartoon. Meanwhile, extremists march freely, screaming hate. Did you know 70% of UK Muslims want blasphemy laws? Yet we tiptoe around their feelings while war memorials are desecrated. Police, too scared to act. Moderate Muslims, silent. Why tolerate intolerance? These radicals wouldn't grant you free speech if roles reversed. Britain, fight back. How much more of your country are you willing to lose?
Yeah.
Fly free. But here...
Scram.
Here,
Absolutely.
these are our values. But we don't stand up for our values in this country anymore. The government doesn't stand up for it. Everyone's embarrassed. Diversity is our strength, we're told. No, our strength is Western liberal values, our history, our character of our nation, the fact that we fought for democracy against fascism and won. That is where our strength is.
Yeah, absolutely. My forebears fought Nazism. The Nazis are back. They're wearing green bandanas and things now. And they want to, like they did last night, chase Jews out of public spaces in London. Well, no.
Not on my watch.
Absolutely not. Not on your watch, not on my watch. These people should scram. They should get out. We are being taken advantage of on an historic scale. And I'm not putting up with it. And I hope that the British public don't either.
If you want Sharia law, leave. Plenty of countries share your values. Britain's strength lies in Western liberal democracy, not pandering. Our ancestors beat fascism. Today's green bandana radicals push Jews out of London. Fight back, this is our country. So any thoughts on what Douglas just discussed? Share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you never miss any of Douglas's debates.